Welcome back to my channel. I'm on the road, as you can see. The road is quite bumpy. Just listen to the audio. No reason to pay attention to the video. Today's the day after Thanksgiving. Hopefully you guys had a nice Thanksgiving if you celebrate it. I kind of get mixed feelings about Thanksgiving. For me, it just doesn't make any sense. We're celebrating a day that the Americans met with Native Americans, and then all of a sudden we stole their land. I don't know why. But thanks guys for sending me all the Thanksgiving wishes. I guess it's the thought that counts, not necessarily the day. I don't know. It don't seem right to celebrate Thanksgiving, which is a topic of another story. If you work in private security, thank you everybody for working yesterday in America. This is a day that ordinarily we spend with our loved ones, close friends, and relatives. And we often in security, law enforcement, corrections, military, we don't get that time to spend with our family. You know, we're guarding a post. We get paid minimum wage, maybe a little bit more, maybe decent amount pay. Maybe your employer doesn't pay any holiday pay. I did a survey out there. I think like 50% of employers pay some type of bonus if you work a holiday. But if you work yesterday, thank you everybody for for supporting thank you everybody for making the post safe, making the property safe while everybody is home or on the property enjoying their day. Without further ado, let's get started with the topic. I'll talk about what is the oldest age to be a police officer. Well, or how old is too old to be a police officer? So on the federal level, assuming you don't have any prior sworn experience or prior military experience, I think the cutoff age, it was 37 and a half, but I think they may have changed it to 40. And for federal law enforcement, I think the mandatory age of retirement is 57. So if you're 56 years old, and remember the process can take a year and a half, it can take 6 months, it can take 5 months, it can take 8 months. But if you're 56 years old, you're not going to get in on time. And let's just say you're 55 years old, right? You could possibly get in on time, but you're gonna have to retire like maybe 6 months afterwards. Now, we talked about military service. You got military service, you can definitely get into federal law enforcement a lot older. For California, there is a mandatory retirement age for highway patrol officers. I think it might be like 57 or 56 or 55. I don't know. And I think the LAPD has a similar retirement age. I don't know if they remove that restriction or not. So if you're sitting here wondering what's the oldest age to get into law enforcement, assuming that there's no legal restrictions, assuming that there's no department restrictions, I think it all depends if you're able to physically and mentally be capable of handling yourself, your partners, and the community. I think, I mean, if you look, I know you guys are pressing me for an age. I think if you're hitting 60, 70, 80, I'm hard pressed to say that a patrol job in a law enforcement spectrum might not be for you. But there's always those that prove me wrong. I mean, there are tons of 60-year-olds that are in greater shape than I am. There's probably 70. I know there's 70-year-olds that are in better shape than I am. So there's always those that defy odds. But being in this, so I've been in security in 1998, Police Explorer 97, and I got into law enforcement in 2002. I've seen, okay, I seen for the most part, I've seen some 60-year-olds on patrol that are able to take care of themselves, 50-year-olds, even 40-year-olds. It depends on the individual. There are, I've worked with like late 70-year-olds that were retirees, police retirees, that worked at a hospital where I worked at hospital security. And they were able to de-escalate situations really good, but as for getting into a physical skirmish, one of them got knocked on the floor, and savagely, he returned the next day to work, or the next 2 days, he returned to work, even though he didn't even need the job. I know another gentleman, like 60 years old. This guy was able to handle himself, and he was able to handle himself with patients that were on a 5150 hold. 5150 is the Welfare and Institution Code in California that places somebody under involuntary detention. Every state has their own number. So has their own code. So whenever you see like an inmate, it's usually you see inmates, parolees, guys that done time in jail. A lot of times mental health plays into part in the criminal intent, right? In criminal roles. So you got a lot of people who are behaviorally unsound, who end up doing time. Well, they get out, they get tattoos like on their stomach, on their chest that say 5150, or on their eyes. Not their eyes, on their eyelids. Not eyelids. Yeah, maybe even eyelids. I mean, some of them are that crazy to put it on their eyelids. But some of them put on their forehead, 5150. I know another guy that put on his forehead 11550. 11550 right here on his forehead. And guess what he was arrested for many times? Drug sales, 11550. 11550 is the health and safety code for being under the influence of a controlled substance, Schedule 1 controlled substance in California. Give me a minute, guys. Mike from the Professional Security Journal, make sure you guys are subscribed to his channel. I saw him on the comments. Thank you, Mike, for moderating this video. And damn, it looks like we got quite a bit of people watching this video. All right. And I'm thinking out loud right now. That's the thing about live stream. A lot of people complain, oh, you ramble on live stream. It's a live stream, right? So, geez. Let me give you my thoughts on the older ages, right? So I am 44. I just turned 44, and I can de-escalate a lot of situations. I hate to use that word, de-escalate. You're basically bringing down the intensity of situations. I think I do a pretty good job doing that. And guys, there's no magical class I took. In 2000, I read this book called Verbal Judo that was written by the late Dr. George Thompson, who in my opinion founded the principles of de-escalation, or at least he made it wide known on what you have to do to de-escalate a situation. And I have the book. I don't remember any words in that book referring to the word de-escalation at all. So this is something that law enforcement and private security have used. I actually took the verbal judo class at a private security school in 1998 or 1999, and then I took it again in 2010 or 2011. I took it at the Imperial Valley Regional Occupation Program, Imperial Valley ROP. It was a really good class. What you gotta do is put yourself in other people's situations and treat people as you would like to be treated. That is the golden rule, and that's what I was taught in that class. 26 years later, that's still the rule that I abide by. And what ends up happening is the older you get, the more you can put. Well, I want to say this: the more experiences you have putting yourselves in other people's shoes. Now, you might say, Sean, well, that's not the case. I know this guy at work who's like 50 or 60 years old or 80 years old, and he escalates situations instead of de-escalates situations. I understand, and there's always those flyers. It happens everywhere. But just my own experiences, that's all that I did, is put myself in other people's shoes, and I treated other people like I want to be treated. And the older I got, I seen the more I can de-escalate situations. At 44, I feel very confident de-escalating a lot of situations. Now, the situations that I cannot de-escalate are situations where somebody has clouded judgment, either through a behavioral health challenge, or they have clouded judgment through consumption of alcohol or some type of controlled substance or some type of drug. Those people, it doesn't matter who you are. You can send the late Dr. George Thompson to a situation in your line of work where somebody's going to become violent. If that person's mind is clouded, has clouded judgment based on narcotics, based on alcohol, based on a behavioral health challenge, if you can't get them to your side of reality, which is very difficult to do, Dr. George Thompson can't even de-escalate those situations. Matter of fact, I took a de-escalation class that was mandatory for our state, and the instructor himself, who is basically a representative from POST, the Peace Officer Standards and Training, says that it's ultimately up to the other person to de-escalate. You can use all the tools that are available to you and all the strategies, but ultimately it's up to that person to decide whether or not they're going to de-escalate. The older you get, the more experiences you have in these types of situations, I think the better off you are resolving these situations, future situations. Now, I got into security at age 18. I used to always think that age had no difference. Age wasn't even a determining factor on whether you can de-escalate a situation or not. I was that 18-year-old, I was that 21-year-old law enforcement officer that thought the same thing. But now, looking, 20 plus years, no, it's age. Age helps because of the experiences that you have or will have. So my recommendation, for those of you that I guess who think you're older, I mean, anybody that's younger than 44 to me is pretty young still, right? And to me, honestly, being 44, a 50-year-old and a 60-year-old is quite young. I used to think it's an old person, but yeah, when you're middle-aged, you kind of have a different aspect of that. But I think a 30-year-old, even a 40-year-old, or somebody in late 20s will be an excellent law enforcement officer. Now, I apologize to everybody that I had to base my initial experiences on. And that involves, I guess, customers, clients, bad people. Yeah, so, I'm an early 20s law enforcement officer, late teens security. Unfortunately, my trial and errors were with those initial people, right? So I apologize to them. But guys, everybody starts off somewhere. If you're 15 years old and you're thinking, oh man, like, I'm not going to be successful because this 44-year-old on YouTube is saying that age is a determining factor to de-escalate situations. I would say do not worry about that. There's nothing you can do about age. You can't just age yourself to 50 or 60, right? You can't go into the fast forward machine. But what you can do is you can learn off of the experiences of others. Take a class where somebody has a lot of experience de-escalating situations. I actually got a job, and the pay is, pretty good, for a third-party vendor, and they want me to develop a de-escalation class, like a 2-hour, 4-hour class. I'm not putting myself out there because I don't even really have the logistics to start something like this. But to jump in on another company is quite different. But find somebody who is well versed in de-escalation. They're well versed in turning down the intensity situations. And just because they got gray hair, just because they're 50 or 60 years old or 80 or 90 or 100, that does not mean that they're able to de-escalate. Or that does not mean also that they're able, excuse me, that doesn't mean that they're able to transfer knowledge onto you. I mean, every instructor is different. But I do like instructors that are married or that were married or that were in long-term relationships. And the reason why I like that is because they probably did something right. Now, that can go with a lot of an argument, right? A lot of people would argue that, or some people would argue that. But yeah, I mean, if you've been married for some time or in a long-term relationship, I mean, I would say long-term in this day and age, I would say 4 years is long-term. 3. I mean, I've been married since 20 something years. I'm not saying I did something right, but I'm able to probably resolve situations without violence, right? Now, are there abusers out there that are married 30, 40 years? Yeah, obviously there are, and they control the relationship. But I'm not talking about those types of those people that are trying to train you. Okay. If you're 20 years old, it's not the end of the world because you're not 30 or 40. And if you're 30, it's very possible that you may have lived with your parents. Like all those years, it's very possible that you may have not even had a job. It's very possible that you may not have been in a long-term relationship. That's very possible. And would you become a good law enforcement officer? I don't know. Would you become a good instructor for de-escalation? I got no idea. But being in a long-term relationship, having kids, if you've been a parent, right, for some time, I'm not talking about you got an infant, and I know some people are watching this. Oh, Sean, I had our baby last week. You talking about us? No. Okay. If I'm talking about you got like adolescents, you got teenagers, maybe you got adults, right? You've been through life. Everything that life throws at you, you're able to resolve. I think that some of those people make good instructors. You got teenagers, geez. I definitely feel for you. So age, as long as you're physically and mentally capable of doing the job, I don't think it should be a determining factor. I do think past 60, it's a little bit challenging. I'm not saying a 60-year-old can't do it. I'm not saying a 70-year-old. I'm not saying an 80-year-old can't do it. There's Buckshot I think Buckshot worked for Camden Police in Arkansas. He was like 80-something years old. He has like 50 years on the job. Unfortunately, he passed away within the past year or before. But I'm not saying Buckshot couldn't handle himself, but it's assumed that when you reach a certain age, you could possibly be off patrol and be placed in an administrative role, maybe a chief of police, a lieutenant, a commander, and you're not, like, you don't have to involve yourself in physical situations anymore, or that chance is very minimal. So I think that's one of the reasons, like in California, they pushed the retirement age to 57, thinking that you're going to be a commander or be in some type of different role. As for, your patrol officer being 70, 80, 90 years old, 100 years old, again, I think you're playing with fire a little bit, but obviously everybody's different out there. I'm pretty sure. Now, I don't think that there's any way that Buckshot is on patrol or was on patrol, but let's just say he was. I would make a good argument that Buckshot rarely has to go hands on people because he can talk his way out of situations. That's all I got, guys. Unfortunately, I can't look through all the live comments, but please post something in the comment section box below. What do you think I want to know how old you are, or age, I guess category, 30s, 40s, 50s, or if you're 55, if you're 100, if you're 200, I don't care. I want to know how old you are, and what age do you think is the maximum age that somebody should be a law enforcement officer? And obviously, we didn't touch on corrections. We didn't touch, we didn't touch on corrections, really. I mean, we didn't touch on Secret Service. We just basically touch on police, like local law enforcement, which involves municipality and federal agents. So that's really it. And then, obviously, if you're on a task force with federal agents, I mean, even if you're 60 years old, you're not fully capable of handling yourself. If you're in task force, you're probably on the team with like 8 or 10 other guys or 15 other guys. I mean, when are you gonna go hands-on? Yeah, I mean, it's gonna happen, but you have all the helping hands in the world. But yeah, hey, what do you guys think the maximum age is? What is your age or age category or age group? And what do you think the maximum age to be a law enforcement officer should be? And do you have any experiences with anybody that's maybe older than 50? All right, guys, take care.